Great. So thank you for joining us today for a mini grants informational workshop. My name is Robert Marmito. I'm a management analyst who supports Valley Water's Safe Clean Water Grants and Partnerships program. And today we are excited to share about our new mini grant program and the updated changes that we've made to this program with you all. We will also be giving tips along the way to help you develop a strong application. Um, Before we get into that, I'd like our grants team to introduce themselves. So I'll go ahead and pick off the people I see first on my screen, so I'll pass it off to Renee.
Thank you, Robert, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Rene Moreno. I serve as a management analyst supporting our grants and partnership program. Welcome and thank you for joining. I'll hand it over to Amy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Fonseca. I'm the Supervising Program Administrator for the Grants and Partnership Program, and looking forward to showing our exciting new mini grant program. Thank you. I'll pass it off to Clarissa.
Hey everybody, my name is Clarissa Steinglein. I'm a staff analyst in our Grants and Partnership program. You'll hear more from me in the later slides, along with Robert. Next on my screen, I see Tanya.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tanya Smith, and I am a staff analyst here at the Grant and Partnership team. And I am excited to be a part of this presentation and excited that you're all here with us.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Lee. I'm a senior management analyst with our Grants and Partnerships program, and I help oversee our standard grants. So yeah, very excited to have everyone here. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And I think we could go on to the next slide. And I'll pass it off to Clarissa to start us off.
Okay, so this is our agenda for the workshop today. First, I'll go over Valley Water and our mission and what is the Safe Clean Water program. Then Robert will talk about our new mini grant program and the changes that we've made. And then we'll get into more detail about writing the scope and budget, some best practices for that. Then we'll end it with questions and answers. And next slide. Okay, so Valley Water, for those unfamiliar with us, we are Santa Clara Valley Water District, also known as Valley Water. We're a public agency that is a special district of the state of California. Most people know us as a wholesale drinking water provider for Santa Clara County, but we also do other things. We manage waterways in our region, and we carry out flood protection projects and activities. So on the left side of the slide there with the green background is Valley Water's mission, which is to provide Silicon Valley with safe, clean water for a healthy life, environment, and economy. This mission is guided by three pillars, and that's the three pictures you see on your screen: clean, reliable water, flood protection, and healthy creeks and ecosystems. Each of our grant funding opportunities are based on these three pillars. Next slide. Okay, so speaking of grant funding opportunities, these are administered by the Grants and Partnerships Program, which is under the External Affairs Division at Valley Water. This grants program is funded through a voter-approved special parcel tax that we call Safe Clean Water and Natural Flood Protection Program. So if you visit some of our grant projects throughout the county, you might see that sign in the lower right of the slide where it says your tax dollars at work. So this is the Safe Clean Water Natural Flood Protection Program that was originally approved in 2012 by voters and renewed in 2020. And through this program, Valley Water, we invest about $47 million every year, or every 15 years, for projects that deliver safe, clean water, national flood protection, and environmental stewardship. Okay, so if you look at the image in the upper right, the Safe Clean Water Program, priority F in small letters. So Priority F is one category within that program, and the purpose for Priority F is to support public health and public safety for our community. And Priority F is further divided into different projects, and the Grants and Partnerships program is Project F9, which you see there on the left side of the screen, Project F9. So if you look at that, you'll see there are 4 funding opportunities within Project F9. Each one has their key performance indicators or KPIs, and staff keeps track of metrics, and we run reports just to make sure that we are meeting our KPIs, because these are public dollars, and our goal is to ensure that the public benefits from the public dollars. So in this workshop, we'll cover one of the 4 funding opportunities that you see there in the bullet list, which is the mini grant program. Mini grants are smaller grants of up to $10,000 per project, and they are available year-round. The intention is to provide kind of seed funding for smaller projects, and we can kind of combine resources to increase efficiency and make the funds go further. And next slide.
All right. So our new mini grant program, as Clarissa had mentioned, is designed to provide seed funding to encourage community engagement in activities that further safe, clean drinking water and water conservation, flood protection, and environmental stewardship in Santa Clara County. And all the information that we're about to present can be also found on our main webpage, which is on the screen right there, valleywater.org/mini-grants. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are excited to share some new updates to our mini grant program this year. Based on feedback that we received from our grantees, we've developed recommendations and worked with a consultant to streamline and right-size our mini grant program. So these recommendations were then brought up to our board of directors this year, who approved it, and now we are ready to implement these changes into this new cycle of funding. And as you see on the screen, these updates include an increased grant award from $5,000 per project to $10,000 per project. We've also removed the 25% match funding requirement from applicants, so you no longer need to demonstrate, all these other contributions that adds up to 25% of the total project cost. We have a new streamlined online application. And so it is live, so if you do log into Flux, and we'll talk more about that later, our application is a lot more streamlined, a lot more simple, hopefully, more direct for you to kind of fill out the information with the required stuff that we look for as well. Additionally, insurance costs are now eligible costs for your project budget, which we will also talk more about later on in this presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, and then so for those for those returning with us, our applicant eligibility still stays the same, but for those who are new to our programs, I'll quickly go over who is eligible for our grant programs. And so we typically serve organizations that provide work or services in Santa Clara County. And so these organizations include public agencies, special districts or municipalities, nonprofit organizations with a 501c3 tax status, or a school community college or universities, public, private, or nonprofit, for-profit organizations, or an organized community group with an established structure, or an affiliation with a 501c3 organization. And so, typically we work with each organization to figure out what kind of organization they are, to figure out what kind of required documents they need to submit. So if you're unsure about where your organization falls under, you could always reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to work with you to figure that out. Next slide, please. And I'll pass it back to Clarissa to talk more about project eligibility.
Okay, so project eligibility has stayed the same. Eligible projects must have a strong connection to safe, clean drinking water, flood protection, and environmental stewardship. So as you prepare to write your scope, just keep those 3 things in mind. if your project ties into one or more of these three pillars that support our mission, then that's what we're looking for. Next slide, please. Okay, application requirements. To view and access the application, we use a grant management portal called Flux. Flux is the central hub for all the different grant applications and the related documentation. So you can access Flux directly by going to valleywater.flux.io. That is shown there in the first bullet. And you can also find a link to Flux on our grants website, valleywater.org/grants. So we do only accept applications through this online grants management portal. So through Flux, we don't accept applications through email or hard copy. If you're new to Flux or if you just need a refresher, we do have an updated mini grant program guidelines document as well as a Flux user setup guide available on our resource page. So on the slide there with the green background, that's the URL for our resource page, valleywater.org/grant-resources. And you can find our Flux user setup guide as well as the mini grant program guidelines there. And you can actually get started today after this workshop. You can register yourself and your organization. And once you get into Flux, you can look at the application, the new and improved application. Once you're in there, you'll see that there are required documents. So that that's the second bullet there on the slide. These three documents are required with your application. The first is a signed W-9 tax form, and that just tells us your organization's tax ID number and verifies the status. The next required document is site permissions from the property owner where your project will take place. And that just, shows us that you are authorized to implement that project on that site. Common examples of site permissions can be lease agreements or property owner consent letters or permits from the relevant authorities. Depending on what you submit, we might require additional verification, but we can get into that when you're submitting an application. Okay, the next required document, and this is needed, sorry, pardon me. Oh, here we go. Okay, the delegation of authority. This delegation of authority document, it serves as confirmation that whoever is signing the application or signing the agreement and receiving payments is authorized to do so on behalf of the organization. So examples could be a board resolution, meeting minutes, or just organizational policy. We do have a guidance document on delegation of authority on our resource page. So you can take a look and find more information there.
All right. If I could just jump in, we got a couple of questions. So the first one is actually about the application itself. Somebody's asking for a PDF or other document with the questions to help them put the agreement together. I'm sorry, the application together. And the answer is yes. We'll go ahead and send out those files after this webinar to the participants, and then we'll also be posting that on our webpage under mini grants. So yes, we'll follow up with that. The next question is, what kinds of for-profit organizations are you guys looking for currently? Could a company apply? The answer to that is yes, they are eligible. You know, we in the past, we've had for-profit organizations do water conservation technology. And so we're trying to encourage innovation and development that could help out the county. Again, it has to have that connection. It has to benefit Santa Clara County and its residents. But the sky's kind of the limit on that one. If a member of my org already has requested a grant, do I need to use his or her access, or can I create my own login? No, you can create your own login in Flux. We can provide that information, or if you need assistance, feel free to reach out to us, Valley Water grants@valleywater.org. And hopefully that answered those questions. If not, feel free to raise your hand. Great. We'll keep going.
Great. Thanks, Amy. And yeah, I just want to add on to that last question about having to create a Flex login if more than one member of the same organization is applying or submitted a request. So right now, the Flex portal can really only allow one person to go into an application to edit it. So we can't have, or the system doesn't allow two people to edit the application at the same time. It would just be whoever's in there first. They would have to save it and close to get out of the application, and the other person could log in and, open up the application and add in or make any edits if they need to. But yes, if you have any other questions about Flex or require assistance, you could reach out to us. Oh, and I see here it's a clarification that it's for a different project. Okay, then yeah, that's totally fine. It's gonna be two different applications for two different projects, so that shouldn't be an issue. Yeah. All right. If there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and move on to application process and timeline. All right, so yeah, this is just a very simplified step-by-step process. So first thing you want to do is, of course, check out our website. As Clarissa mentioned, we have uploaded several really helpful resources on our resource page. We've included a new document called the Mini Grant Guidelines, and this has a lot of the information that you need to know when applying for a mini grant project. It also includes a sample of how the agreement looks like and how you could organize your scope into different type of tasks. And just also checking the other grant funding opportunities that may align with your organization and your proposed project. The second step is to go into the Flex portal and register yourself and your organization if you haven't already. That's where you could find all of our online applications for all of our different grant funding opportunities, including the mini grant application. And then last step is to apply, fill out the online application in Flex. And that's where you also provide all of the required documents, and then you hit submit. And once you hit submit, we get notified that your application came through. We will review your application and then reach out to you for any additional feedback or questions. And so the really great thing about the mini grant program is that we get to work one-on-one with you to develop a strong application, and we're here to kind of facilitate the grant process. So it really provides us a unique opportunity to work with you to, further strengthen your application. So, this is why during this phase, it's really crucial for us to be with open communication, having, reaching out to the person filling out the application, getting all the required information and documents, because we want to work with you to ensure that your application is in a good position to get awarded the amount that you are requesting. So with that being said, we're here to work with you on that. You can always reach out to us by scheduling a meeting via the Calendly link posted on our website, or by emailing us at our general grants inbox, grants@valleywater.org. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a timeline which can also be found on our website. So once you submit your application, the time frame to award your application through Flex is about 4 to 6 weeks. And this is, really, really dependent on how quickly we are able to resolve any type of follow-up that our reviewers have, or how quickly we are able to retrieve any other type of documentation that we may require, depending on the type of project that you're doing. And so our aim is typically 4 to 6 weeks, but sometimes it may go a little over, so we just want to keep that in mind when you're proposing a project with certain deadlines or dates. We just want to make keep it clear that it may take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks or even longer to a couple months or 3. So once your project has been awarded on Flex, that is when we start drafting and executing the agreement. And so this is where we gather all of the information, put it into the agreement template that we have, get all the insurance documents ready, get all the permissions letters ready. And once we have that, then we have that agreement reviewed internally, and we also review it with the organization just to make sure everything looks good, everything looks correct. And once that's, ready to go, then we start routing it for signatures. And the agreement is not considered executed until we've received signatures from Valley Water and your organization. And so the approximate time frame for that, could vary again, depending on how quickly we're able to get the insurance documents ready and the permission letters, but typically it takes around 4 to 6 weeks. And then after the agreement has been executed, that's when we start the invoicing process. So how invoicing works for mini grants is that we release 50% of the grant funding up front. So we send a final payment, we send an initial payment request form to you to sign, and then we send it to our accounting unit to process, and you should be receiving like a check within the mailing address that you provided in about 2 weeks. And then from there, from the date of execution, you have about 2 years to complete your project. And that leads us to the final, step, which is closeout. So once you're done with your project, you will submit a final report as well as any type of documentation of the deliverables that is mentioned in the agreement. And so once that's reviewed by grant staff and everything looks good to go, then we issue the remaining 50% of the funds. So yeah, our goal is to support you throughout this entire process. So, each stage, if you have any questions, you could always reach out to us. But, we do take almost like a hands-on approach where we kind of work with the applicant to ensure that all of the information is aligned, that all of the deliverables are met, and that the scope looks good to the point that they're realistic and achievable as well. And I'm just going to stop here just to see if we have any questions. I know it's kind of a lot of information regarding the process and timeline.
Yeah, so we do have a couple questions. Matthew asked if they had any questions, how they could reach out to us. So you can email us at grants@valleywater.org. You can call us, or you can set up an appointment through our website. That's valleywater.org/grants, and I'll go ahead and copy this information. It's also in the presentation. Next question. If our nonprofit works in partnership with public schools in Santa Clara County and serves the students in the public school, does that count as public benefit? Yeah, that does sound like it would possibly count as a public benefit. Next question, your website says the application period is open year-round on a rolling basis until funds run out for the fiscal year, July 1 through July 30th. Is this a good time of year to apply, or are funds low by now and best to apply early in the year? So the funds are limited. We have $100,000 and it's first come, first serve. But we are providing preference for people who are applying for the first time in the fiscal year. So one application per year. So my recommendation is to apply as soon as you're ready to, because we currently have plenty of funds, but that might not be the case closer towards the end of the fiscal year. Can I apply for a grant even if the project is already in progress? Good question. The answer is no. So it should be a new project. No work should have started. So if you already have a project that's started, we will not be able to award that. But if you do have a project in mind that you're working on, go ahead and we encourage you to apply or reach out to us. So just looking at the time, I'm going to keep sending in your questions. These are great, but we'll hold them to the end of the presentation. But thank you so much for your questions.
Great, thanks, Amy. All right, so moving on, just talking about additional compliance checks that we do as part of your application reviews, the insurance and environmental compliance. So we do require that each project must be insured for the entire term of the agreement. All of the insurance endorsements must receive approval before we finalize and execute the agreement. So this just makes sure that all the necessary coverage is in place, and it provides the protection for both parties involved. But as mentioned, with our new mini grant program redesign, these insurance costs are now eligible costs and can be included in your proposal for the mini grant funding that you request. Grantees are also expected to comply with insurance requirements and maintain them for the following insurance policies, which typically include the general liability, auto liability, and workers' compensation. And these are all reviewed on a case-by-case basis as applicable to the project. So we do, understand and acknowledge that different types of projects may require some different insurance needs or may not even require insurance at all. So we do work collaboratively to adjust them or waive insurance requirements on a case-by-case basis with our risk manager. In addition to insurance coverage, Valley Water as a public agency must comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA. So CEQA requires us to analyze a project's potential environmental impact, and our internal environmental planning unit handles this review. We do not require applicants to have a completed CEQA review prior to submitting their application. Our internal CEQA review is complete once the environmental planning unit provides the signed documentation. However, as part of our process, if we may have additional inquiries or requests for the applicant or the grantee to ensure compliance with CEQA. All right, next slide, please. Then I'll pass it off to Clarissa for some important things to note.
Yeah, so we have a few things to keep in mind as you're applying for your project. The first is that you have 2 years from the date of your agreement execution to complete your project. So as you're developing your project timeline, just keep that in mind. 2 years from when the agreement is completely signed, and that to do all the project tasks. The next thing is to ensure public access. So we kind of touched on that earlier. Since it is taxpayer dollars that fund the grants program, we do need to ensure that the projects provide public access, which means that the project should be free to community members or have some kind of process that can waive the fees, or like, for example, a scholarship if it's like a educational summer camp, for example. And that kind of helps ensure that the Santa Clara County residents are benefiting from the projects. The third bullet here, it says, do not begin work on the project prior to the agreement effective date or prior to when the agreement is fully signed. So that is one of the requirements, is that we can only cover costs that are, or cover work that is done or costs that are incurred after the agreement is executed. Okay, and our last thing to note is that grant staff is your main point of contact for the project. So we will coordinate with internal Valley Water teams. Robert mentioned that there's a CEQA review involved, so we'll coordinate with our CEQA team, or coordinate with our risk manager for insurance review. If you have an event associated with your project and you'd like to invite the board of directors, we will help coordinate that as well. So just reach out to the grant staff for that. Okay, next slide. Okay, now we'll get to show you some examples of actual mini grant projects. This first one here is from Marshmallow Mines. Their project is A Tough Trek, Salmon Migration in a Warm Planet. And this is a educational program that they developed and piloted through the mini grants. And their audience were elementary schools in Santa Clara County, a lot of them Title I schools. Next slide. So this one is from Friends of Master Gardeners of Santa Clara County. It's a Drink What You Grow teaching and demonstration garden foundation project. So the mini grant funded installation of different planters, irrigation, and plants, and it's a teaching garden space. So it's educational component as well. Next slide. Okay, this last example is the Empire Gardens Elementary School mural project by Keep Coyote Creek Beautiful. We have a really nice video, very inspiring about this project. We don't have time to watch the whole video, but I do encourage you to check it out when you're done. The video is on our Success Stories webpage, and on that page, you'll see other examples of projects and not just the mini grants. So speaking of the success stories page, that is accessible through just the main grants page, valleywater.org/grants. From there, you'll find the other pages that we mentioned, the resource page, the link to Flux, and more information about the other grants programs. So, and we've put that in the chat as well. So the resources are available to you. Okay, I will pass it off to Robert for the next slide.
Yes, thanks, Clarissa. This is just again, a few reminders again, we strongly encourage you to take the next step. So visiting our website to register on Flux and access the application forms, and then checking out all of our different resources that we have updated for you to help you develop a strong application. Next slide, please. All right, and then real quick, just wanted to plug in another of our year-round grant opportunity that we have through our Grants and Partnerships program, and this is called our Refill Station Grant Program. So these grants are designed specifically to provide funding for the purchase, installation, and maintenance of new water bottle refill stations to expand drinking water across Santa Clara County. And so we are especially interested in working with organizations that serve economically underserved communities or school-age children and students. And just like the mini grants, there's no deadline to apply, so you may apply at any time. And grantees will receive $5,000 per refill station or until we run out of funds for the entire year. And just like the mini grant program, there is about $100,000 in funding for the refill station grant program each year. All right, next slide, please. So this is just some of our contact information that we've already kind of mentioned, but we will be diving into the next segment of our presentation today, which is crafting your scope and budget. So if you could skip over a few slides. Or I guess, yeah. All right. All right, so now that we covered the overview of our mini grant program, we will quickly go over how to craft your scope and budget for the new and improved mini grant application. So, we're excited to offer a new update to our application that streamlines and outlines your project more efficiently. Next slide, please. All right, and then just wanted to remind you, register yourself on Flux. We use the system to, again, as a one-stop hub to administer, receive, and review all of our mini grant applications. Next slide, please. All right, so with overview of the scope and budget, so the scope outlines three important things about your project. It identifies your objectives and your deliverables. It defines any key tasks and milestones associated with your project, and it also highlights the project's purpose and impact. And the budget is just a summary of the major expense categories and funding sources that ensure success to completing your project. It includes both cash expenses and in-kind contributions, which, could be in the form of donations or services provided by your organization or by volunteer work, or, if there's another organization contributing to it, that could also be included in your budget. And the budget is directly aligned with what is listed in your agreement. So we do work with a template, which we will also be going over, that makes this process a little bit more organized and a lot more easier to do. Next slide, please. All right, and then I'll hand it off to Clarissa to give more information about how to develop your scope.
Okay, so in reviewing a lot of the applications and putting the scope into agreements, we kind of realized that it would be really helpful if we provided a framework for the scope, and this framework would apply to most mini grant projects. Not all. If you're very creative, then maybe you might find that this framework wouldn't apply. But this is what we recommend generally. So I think you can press next will appear on your screen. All right. So framework includes background, and this is highlighting the purpose of the project. The next is the project objectives, and these are clear and measurable goals that support the purpose of your project. Next is tasks, and these are the activities that you will do to meet your project objectives. And we'll get into tasks more in the next slides. But the last component is the expected outcomes, so the anticipated results or impact of your project. Next slide. Okay, so we're now getting into the tasks. So as mentioned, these are the activities that you will do to support your project objectives, and that includes specific deliverables and a timeline. Next slide. So you can kind of categorize tasks into 4 different categories. One is planning and design, then outreach and community participation, implementation, and evaluation and closeout. Next slide. Okay, so we'll get into each one. The planning and design task, it's usually the initial phase of the project, and that can include activities like researching and developing your project plan, creating designs or prototypes. So like other examples, you could be obtaining the site permission, so that could be your deliverable. You have the permit that you need, or developing or purchasing your program materials, any supplies. That could be another deliverable. So you've now purchased your supplies during this planning and design phase, or training your staff and volunteers. Okay, the next is outreach and community participation. So this includes activities related to engaging with the stakeholders of your project. So some examples, you're developing your outreach plan or the outreach materials. You're buying ads on social media or ads in newspapers, depends on what suits your project. And then you're budgeting for your staff hours to conduct the outreach, or you're hosting community meetings. Okay, the next one is implementation, and this is where the actual execution of your project activities could take place. So that can include conducting workshops, or maybe if your project includes a cleanup, you're organizing and conducting the cleanup in waterways, or you're painting the mural. Lots of ideas there. Okay, our last are evaluation and closeouts, and these are activities that can assess the effectiveness and the impact of your project. And this also involves preparing and writing any reports, or maybe presentations, or collecting testimonials, or conducting interviews from participants. Next slide.
So this is just an example of how tasks can be organized in your application. So in our application, you'll see that there's a section where there's a table, and in that table, we've pre-filled out, task 1 is planning and design, task 2 is outreach and community participation, task 3 is implementation, and task 4 is evaluation and closeout. And so under these tasks, this is where you fill out, the activities that you're doing that are related to your project, as well as the deliverables for each of those things. So for each category, we kind of encourage you to, list out where are they taking place, what kind of measurable outcomes will be coming out of them, because those are the things that you will be providing to us once your project is complete. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is just an example of what kind of tasks and deliverables. So this is I think the example project is a community garden. So if you're doing a community garden, for example, this is kind of what how your tasks and deliverables would be looking like and how they're grouped in. So in the planning and design tasks, we have conducting site surveys to conduct soil health and retrieve permits, and then deliverables would or the things that you would provide to us to ensure that your task was complete is providing us with the survey results, photos, and copies of those permits. The second task is outreach community participation. So the tasks include organizing workshops and publishing social media posts. And then deliverables would just be, copies of the workshop content or the links to the social media and then just like numbers of registrants. Third is the implementation task. So example of this could include, actually starting work on building and raising the garden beds, preparing the soil for planting, and then specifying how many native plants you plan to, install. And then deliverables for that would just be, photos of the before and after, the list of native plants that you've installed, number of garden beds, and participants or volunteers who participated in those activities. And then lastly is just evaluation and closeout. So we strongly encourage, if you're doing any type of environmental education or any type of water conservation work, to have some type of survey to assess either community satisfaction or knowledge from participants who participated in your project. And then deliverable for that would just be the results from that survey. Next slide, please. All right, so how the scope and budget are connected. So the scope contains tasks and activities that are associated with the project, and as you've seen from previous slides, they're organized into different buckets or tasks, and then the budget covers the cost it takes to execute your project, and so the budget is aligned to the scope to show how costs are split between those tasks, and it would make a lot more sense once you start looking at the application because we kind of format it in a way where it shows how much money you're requesting for task 1, planning and design, how much money are you requesting for task 2, outreach and community participation. So it kind of just gives us a general sense into how the budget is being used for all of the different tasks. Like, are most of it going to planning, or most of it going to outreach, or is most of it going to implementation? So that's just kind of how the two are connected, and in the application it'll show that connection a lot more distinctly. Next slide, please. All right, so as you prepare your scope and budget, we just wanted to put out some important reminders about what we can and cannot fund. So we can't fund projects with any advocacy or political components. And we only fund projects that are accessible by the public. So there shouldn't be any type of fees involved for people to access your project or to enter the property in which your project is taking place in. There has to be some sort of component where, if there are fees, are there like any waivers? Can people apply for like a free pass, things like that. Thirdly, your deliverables must be realistic, achievable, and demonstratable. So, because as mentioned, whatever you listed out in your application and what is ultimately written to the agreement, those are binding. And so we ask, for documentation of your deliverables in order for us to pay out the grant funds for you. And lastly, insurance can be included in your budget. So if your project involves, a certain type of insurance policy that you would like to get funding for, you could write that into your budget under the planning and design portion. All right, next slide, please. All right, so I think that pretty much wraps up the presentation, and we do have a quick survey that we'd love, for you all to take if you have the time to. We've also put the link in the chat. Sorry about the cutoff on the screen. But yes, if you could please take the survey and let us know what your thoughts are on this workshop. It'll help us tremendously to improve future workshops. This is the first time we've actually talked about our new mini grant program through this workshop. So any type of feedback is helpful. Leave that up for 1 second, and then we could go to the next slide. And then, yeah, just again, here's our contact information. If you need to contact us, we're here to support you through your grant application process. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. For the quickest response, we recommend contacting us via email. Our staff regularly checks our email and our voicemail as well. Yeah, and if you have any other questions, you could always schedule a meeting with us on our website. But I think now we could open it up for you all if you have any question that we could answer right now.
Yeah, thank you, Robert and Clarissa, and thanks for everybody's patience while we got through the content. And like Robert said, the survey is really important for us. If you do have time, we encourage you to provide that information so that we can provide webinars to you and to other organizations that will help them be successful in their application. Okay, so I'm opening questions up again. We have two. So the first one is define started. We have a project plan that we've talked about with the city to see what we can do and can't do, but we haven't done work yet. Yeah, so that's a really good question. So when we say start, we mean like any of the activities that you want funded. So what you're describing here kind of sounds like preliminary work or preliminary planning. And yeah, definitely you're going to want to do that. It's going to help you put together a stronger application if you've kind of done a little bit of legwork behind the scenes. So when we say started, what we mean is more like implementation or anything that you're waiting to get funded on. So, you know, if you've already started some of the planning work, like looking into permits and permissions, that's totally fine. We just want to make sure that you haven't started the implementation phase or anything, again, that you want funded through the grant. So hopefully that answers that question, but feel free to raise your hand or type a follow-up question. The next one is, can we also ask Cal Water for grants for the same project? So that's also a very good question. You can have multiple funding sources for the same project. So, you know, let's say your project is $20,000. You can certainly go to another organization or provide your own funding for the same project. We can provide up to $10,000. We do ask that you let us know what your other funding sources are, but we won't be allowing what we call double dipping. So that would be, you know, if your other organization is paying for a cleanup event and all the supplies, then we can't go and pay for cleanup events and all the same supplies. So we don't want to pay for something that's already being paid for, but if you are sharing cost, that's totally, in the most cases, it's totally fine. I'd say if you're concerned or in your case, not sure, feel free to reach out to us. Again, you can email us and you can also set up an appointment through our website. There's a link. And I find that that's pretty helpful for people who are interested in applying. Okay, hopefully I answered that, but again, feel free to follow up or raise your hand. Would replacement irrigation parts to a public garden work as a grant idea? That's a really good question. So if it's going to provide a benefit to the public, which it sounds like it would, that's good. We can't pay for operations and maintenance of something that's existing. So if we're just replacing the existing irrigation, that probably would fall under maintenance or operations, so we wouldn't fund that. But if your irrigation is an improvement, so we've had folks put in new irrigation for gardens that use less water, so it's water conservation, that could certainly be something we could look into funding. Yeah, so great questions.
I also wanted to add that Valley Water does have a rebate program for water conservation. And I believe that includes irrigation. So that is a separate program. You can go to watersavings.org and they have more information all about their different rebate programs. So you may be surprised about the different kind of rebates that we offer.
Yeah, great point, Clarissa. We have a lot of different rebates. I encourage you, outside of the grants world to go check that out. We offer a lot of free supplies, like shower timers and nozzles for your sinks, but there's also a landscape rebate program. That I would encourage you to visit the website to learn more about that. It's a different program. Okay, next questions. So getting quotes ahead of time will help with the application. Yes, absolutely. You want to have a realistic budget. It's going to help you and it's going to help your application. Um, we can't increase the award amount after awarded. So let's say you think your project's going to be $8,000. We award you $8,000, but you forgot to add some fund or something like that. We can't increase it at a later date so it's always a good idea, and it makes your application much stronger if you do a little bit of research and get some different quotes. So if I were turning in an application, I would certainly do that. Good question. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that one. But... Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions, but we are going to stick around for the next few minutes. If something comes in, it pops in your mind. Oh, okay. Are homeowners associations able to apply? Yes, I believe so. The project would have to benefit the public. So if you have public spaces within your HOA, you could certainly apply for some kind of grant. Again, would probably need to be open to the public, not just the residents in your homeowners association. But yes, you would be able to apply. Okay, next question. We have an existing education program serving public schools, primarily Title I. Can we apply to add Spanish language curricula to that program? So are you saying it's an existing program and you want to create Spanish, so translate it into Spanish? That one, I would encourage you to reach out to us. Typically, we want a new project. So again, we don't want to fund we can't fund operations and maintenance. So if the curriculum or program that you've developed is already there and you're looking to translate it into Spanish, we'd have to kind of chat about that. And it would also have to be connected to Valley Water's mission. So just keep that in mind. It would have to be related to water conservation, stewardship, environmental stewardship, flood protection, water technology, things like that. But yeah, I think we need to learn a little bit more about your specific project. And again, you can always reach out via email, grants@valleywater.org, or set up an appointment. It's pretty easy. So you'll go to our website for that. All right, we have a couple of minutes, but we're happy to stick around if you have any other questions. Again, please take that survey. That'll help us help you. And we do really appreciate you spending this hour with us. We're excited to be presenting our new mini grant program. A lot of work behind the scenes, but we're really hoping to deliver programming that serves our community. So any feedback that you can provide would be much appreciated. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for the great questions. Oh, I got another one. So, was this presentation recorded? If so, will it be available to us? Yes, it will. Good question. We'll be posting it on our website, and then we will follow up with an email to the folks that attended or signed up for this webinar. But yes, may not be right away, but take a look on our website in a day or two, should be posted. And it'll be on our YouTube channel. Can't wait to see what kind of applications we get in, and we're looking forward to working with you. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so we'll go ahead and we'll wrap it up. Again, we'll be sending out a follow-up email, please take the survey. We'll also include the link to the survey in the email. The slides are available on our website. The video will be posted in a day or two. The slide also has our contact information if you weren't able to capture that right away, but the follow-up email will have that as well. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you.